Welcome to the Think Small podcast, hypergrowth for small businesses. So, what's slowing you down?
Well, hi, everybody. It's Rob Godlewski with the Think Small podcast. And today our special guest is Alex Tuttle. Alex is the founding and managing partner of Tuttle Yick LLP, a law firm based in New York City. Alex, thanks so much for joining us on the Think Small podcast today.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Alex, I love talking to folks in the law profession and legal world because at some point, you probably had an inkling that you always wanted to be an attorney. But at some point you said, you know what? I could do this better myself. So let's talk about that journey for you, right? When did you know you wanted to be a lawyer and how did you get started out? And then what finally made you say, I got to find my own firm?
The inception of the idea to become a lawyer was probably mostly through films as a kid. It was kind of in the background as probably a few Tom Cruise movies out there that had a featuring lawyer, prominent lawyer dealing with some adversity. I remember reading some novels back in the day, but I didn't really understand what being a lawyer was. It sounded cool growing up. It sounded like something that was professional and you had to wear a suit for. But I really didn't understand what it was. So when I was going through college, I was graduating right around the .com era, right? So everyone's getting out of school. They were going into tech or going into startups or anything related to .com. That was around 2000, 2001 or 99, 2000. And I had no idea. I really had no idea. And as a precursor to that, I decided, well, as a backstop, I'll just take the LSAT. Just as before I graduate, I'll take the LSAT and maybe that'll give me 3 years extra currency to figure out what I want to do, right? So I did okay on the LSAT, and I wound up deciding I wasn't ready to go in the workforce yet. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Didn't have a lot of experience outside of an academic arena. It's pretty isolated growing up in a small town in Connecticut, and then I went to college in Atlanta. That was a little more eye-opening in terms of growing up. That was my growing up period, 4 years of independence and figuring out what's out there.
Sure.
A few summer internships, and I think I interned in Congress one summer. That was a little sidebar on that, but I applied to law school. I applied to a bunch of different ones, but I knew at the time I wanted to end up in New York. Since I grew up in Connecticut, I wanted to land in New York. I thought that would give me the most opportunity, but I wasn't quite ready for big city life just yet. It was pretty, even though I was close to the city growing up, it was pretty intimidating. I remember, my father would take me into Madison Square Garden and we'd go see games. It was just overwhelming, the size of the buildings, the cabs, the noise, the construction. And it's just like, wow, this is just intense. So I wasn't quite ready for that. So I got into George Washington in DC for law school, and I decided I'll take a pit stop there. It's like, 5 hours from New York. It's on the way there. I'll definitely get a much more metro environment, and I'll really be exposed to law from a lot of different angles, especially in the political world. So I went to law school, and even through law school, I had no idea where that direction was taking me. It was a little bit that was overwhelming because in college you could memorize everything for a test. You could if you planned it right, you could study for a day or two beforehand, memorize everything, get to the test, take the test, easy, right? Did very well. Law school is different. In law school, your mind has to be retrained into thinking how to apply concepts and precedent and theory into real life scenarios, which I didn't have a lot of experience with the real life scenarios at the time. So it was difficult to translate, to grow from being academically an achiever in high school and college to a performer in law school. So I did okay, but it didn't throw me into the funnel of the high performers who naturally went to the big law firms, right? So that was the goal of law school. You try to get the best grades in your first year, and after the first, during the first year, that kind of determines your summer internship during your second year, and that is the direct feeder into your job after law school. And I missed that funnel, right? So I did okay, but it wasn't in the high performing arena, and I wasn't getting a direct channel. So that's when it kind of hit me, like, I need to be a little bit of a scrapper here. I need to figure out how to navigate this without being handed a job that that's very well paying and is a entree into a network of other institutional employers that could be very lucrative throughout your career. But that wasn't the path I was going to go on. So I had to find a job. I found a job just doing in the employment world, and that was it was for a government agency, and that allowed me to get another job at another government agency during law school. So I was working during law school for my second and third years. And that gave me the ability to get in. I applied to what was called the Office of Special Counsel, which is an employment-related agency within the executive branch. It's so long ago at this point, I don't remember exactly what we did, but we investigated claims of violations of employment law within the federal sector. And I was able to get that job out of law school. I stayed in DC for a year. And at that point, I decided I wanted to get to New York. I was ready. It was time to go. A lot of different factors were pointing in that direction. I also knew I didn't want to work for government. I wanted to be in private practice. I had that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. My father was he was a design builder for 40 years. And it was just kind of in my blood. But I knew I had to get some real private market experience. So I applied to a slew of firms in New York. I landed on one that he took a liking to me and said, okay, I'll take a gamble on you. Let's come join me. It was a general practice litigation firm. And stop me if I'm going too long on this diatribe about my trajectory.
No,
but
fine.
So that was that got me exposed to how to litigate, right? So, and then it got me a little bit exposed to different types of litigation that's out there. And it was mostly focused on property damage and personal injury.
Okay.
But the property damage side lent itself more to certain construction elements, which appealed to me because my father, being in that world as a design builder, I understood construction. So I was like, oh, okay, this is starting to make sense. Worlds are starting to collide here in certain ways. And that allowed me to get another job at a specialized construction litigation firm. I went there. It's about 2003, I believe. Or 2005. Yeah, so it's 2005 to 2007. I was with this construction litigation firm, and I was approaching 30 years old, and I was kind of looking around at the partners, and I was saying to myself, do I want to do this forever? Do I want to hitch my ride to this, to this wagon, so to speak, or boat? And I just had another kind of moment of reflection where I decided, you know what, I'm gonna look for a change here. So I went back to school. I started a master's program at NYU for real estate, because the real estate side of the construction was interesting to me. So when I did that, I simultaneously was exploring all options of what I could do besides just being a junior litigation attorney. And I remember one interview I had through a connection was at Toll Brothers to be like a project manager, which was totally different. I'd be in the field overseeing residential construction projects. And Toll Brothers is huge. Yeah,
Totally.
yeah, yeah, huge.
Yeah,
And I would
sure.
be in the New York area, and that was that would have been a total left turn from where I was going. And the other option that came to light was a boutique law firm that had kind of a hybrid business legal model. So it was
Hmm.
representing, on the legal side, it was representing owners, developers, designers, on the transactional components of all those real estate and construction endeavors. And then it also had the business side, which is serving as essentially a business advisory or owner's representative to these developers building these projects. So it was kind of a hybrid legal business firm that I thought would align more with what my interests were. So I was simultaneously going back to NYU to learn the business side of real estate, and
Right.
then I was being exposed on the legal side to real estate and construction, and that really set me in motion to a real entrepreneurial mindset. So it was small. It gave me the rope to kind of uh, build my own identity within that firm. Um, it gave me access to a big network of people and institutions that I otherwise would not have been exposed to, and a tremendous amount of responsibility advising um, developers, designers, contractors, and all aspects of the transactions and the litigation, to the point
Hmm.
where um, I could have stayed there. If there was a pathway for me to stay there that allowed me to remove a ceiling, I probably would have. But there was a ceiling there that I had to recognize to myself and say, do I want, I need something different. Where do I want to go? So at
Right.
that point, I was choosing between, I had an opportunity to come up where I could be, general counsel at one of these large institutions, or, um, do something different, join another small firm, or maybe start on my own. And that's when, a fortuitous story occurred, and I landed to where I was now. But that was kind of the segue up to starting my own firm. Yeah.
Landing where you are now, which is founding your own law firm with a partner and
Yeah.
going out on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that
So
that was that was actually a really fortuitous story. And the quick synopsis of that is I wound up being I met someone in a cab who turned out to have a strikingly similar background as me. He went to the same law school as me, a lot of the same interests, had a boutique firm that was doing exactly what I was doing. And he essentially, I reached out to him and he said, "Do you want to come join me?" And I said, "I don't like your economics, but can I sit next to you?" And so I did, and that's how it all started. We built it from there.
oh, you mean physically sit next to you in his
Yeah, I said,
office?
can I?" Yeah, so he was in the
Can I
he was
lease
in
some
the new.
space from you?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Essentially, I did. I
hysterical.
said, I don't like your deal terms, but I do like where you are. He was in the news building, which, if you've seen the original Superman movie, it's the Daily Planet
Oh,
building
sure.
in that movie. Yeah.
Of course.
So that's where I was. That's where I said I'd like to sit. So I sat in a cubicle and started my own firm, and it grew from there. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So you took a really interesting and different path than the prototypical energetic young law student, right? You had a number of different experiences before you were 30 years old. You weren't necessarily on the partner track of a named, law firm in New York City, but boy, you had a heck of a breadth of experience and deciding to go back to school after earning your law degree is a very different path. I think Alex, I think this is the only thing you could have done was found your own firm.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it, all the pieces lined up. I didn't know how.
Right.
Um, I thought I was just throwing darts at a wall and it was just landing all over the place. And I was like, maybe I'll try this, maybe I'll try that. But it all kind of came together in a nice, organized way at the end. And I didn't know that at the time. So I was really just hustling and thinking. And there was a few critical moments in my life where I was really just, how do I how do I place all this information on a wall and fit it together. I felt like I was trying to solve one of these
Oh,
mystery murders, or a mob,
you were
a
solving a
mafia,
puzzle.
yeah, I was putting all the mafia guys together to figure it out. And it was, and I knew that watching my father be an entrepreneur his whole life, it made sense. The switch in my mind was, it became less risky to be on my own than to be at a company. For whatever, at some point,
Interesting.
I just realized I can either subscribe to whatever this person's vision is, and that's going to determine my future, or
Hmm.
I can believe in my own and and see where that takes me. And I felt like it was less risky to trust myself and
That's
to go that route.
that's a great way to put that. And like I said, this is the only thing you could have done. So so let's talk about the firm now, right? Tuttle Yick is actually mainly specializing in those areas of law that you had all that experience in. Well, lots of real estate, lots of construction related, lots of licensing, things like that. Tell us more.
Yeah, so I would say I would divide it up into three primary practice areas.
Okay.
Although the kind of the overriding theme of the firm that I tried to build was that if someone wants to come in and build something of their own, I'm all ears, open to it. I'll put the full support of the firm behind it.
Hmm.
Um, but where we've where we're at right now is we do real estate, which I would define as um, mostly commercial real estate, not residential. So
Sure.
multifamily, office, hospitality, um, gaming, retail. Um, we would do any transaction along for those types of genres, right? So acquisitions, financings, sales, leases, anything in that world, joint venture agreements. So, and the irony of all that is that the person who handles that is Jeff Yick, one of the other managing partners, who's someone who I recruited to join me 6 months after I started the firm, but I recruited him to join me so he could be in charge of litigation. But instead, because he was a litigator his whole career, and we knew each other in law school, and we wound up landing at the same firm, 2 firms prior to starting my own. And a client called him when he started out on his own, when he started with me, and said, I want you to handle transactions. So he just learned how to do complex commercial real estate deals on the fly on his own after being a
Hmm.
litigator for uh, 10 years at that point, I believe, or 11 years. We also do construction, right? So that's the longest history of our practice. So anything construction
Okay.
related. To get more granular on that, I would say that anytime, and it's commercial mostly, but we'll advise an owner how to structure their construction project. What agreements you need in place with your various team members, and it can be very complex depending on the type of deal. You could have um, a free market deal where it's typical. You're getting a loan, you're getting a construction loan, and you're entering into agreements with your architect and other members of the design team, and then you enter into an agreement with your contracting team to build it. Or it could be publicly funded projects, right? It could be one of the projects we work on is affordable housing. We represent affordable housing developers. We also have a separate entity that builds affordable housing.
Hmm.
So we'll do all the construction agreements, and anything that comes up during the course of construction, we'll advise on how to navigate those issues. And then the third bucket is commercial litigation, who my brother, who's also a managing partner, heads that up. and he joined me after recruiting him from one of the big firms to say, come join me. And so he heads up our litigation, and that spans a lot of different areas. So he's done crypto litigation, construction litigation, real estate litigation, anything that is commercial in nature, we advise. And then a subset of the construction that we do is what you kind of touched on, but is a huge part of our business, which is the licensing agreements between a project adjacent to an existing owner in a city as dense as New York City. You're required by the building code to protect and access neighbors. And you can imagine how willing neighbors are to invite contractors and developers onto their properties. So yes, that is a heavy lift to get those agreements in place, both from the developer side, and will represent the impacted neighbor side too. So that's the core of what we do.
Okay.
We have another attorney who's trying to build an energy practice within our firm, and he was a litigator at our firm, then dropped to be a lobbyist. He left to go be a lobbyist for clean air, a company, but that with the new administration, that business has been sidelined, and so he's come back to us, and now is on the legal side, looking to build that practice.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So starting the firm with your partner back in 2012, clearly you've seen some ups and downs and ebbs and flows, in the business of growing your practice. Tell us a little bit about a time when, income and revenue got strained a little bit, right? When revenue started contracting, if at all, right? And how did you and your partner and the team kind of navigate the business through that?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a ride because we've had to go through many iterations of how we define our identity as a firm, right? It went from a solo, just me, who could kind of control over everything, right? I see everything from top to bottom. I handle the books, I handle the all the administrative stuff, the insurance, the software, anything else that would be administrative in nature, doing the legal work, doing client interactions, doing the billing and things like that. Then starting to scale, we went through, I brought on my partner, Jeff, and then we hired someone, and that became, a little firm, but at the same time, we still all had our hands on everything. And it wasn't until we jumped from a little firm of 3 to 4 people to becoming like a boutique firm where we had more than 10. And that was a big jump in how we manage things, because I couldn't be involved from everything top to bottom. We had to create layers and systems and redundancy and really understand how a business can grow. And that has been those were very challenging. We were still able to keep a straight line revenue growth. Some years were better than others, but for the most part, we were able to maintain its growth. But as we were growing, we weren't necessarily keeping up with the housekeeping at the same pace. So we were losing out on income that otherwise could have come to us because of things that we were not able to scale as quickly, because we didn't even know what the problems were until they surface, right? And then they surface, and it's
You're
patchwork.
talking more about internal systems and processes and practices just to keep the business kind of right as a business.
Correct. Because a lot of the difficulties weren't in getting the clients. That hasn't been tough, and we haven't even advertised. We don't advertise. It's all word of mouth and our network and performance based. And our business model has always been serving the client through their growth as an institution, through their project, whatever it may be. So it's not transactional in nature. We're staying with the client. We build a relationship and trust so that we're the first call. So that's one of the reasons we weren't necessarily dipping in revenue. Because it wasn't transactional in nature. It was mostly growing with the clients, and they were growing too. So we were, of course, growing with them. But I will say that there were a couple of plateaus or challenge. There was one challenge and one plateau I think we experienced. The biggest challenge was during the pandemic, right? So when the pandemic hit, we didn't know how that was going to play out, right? So thankfully, at least with respect to our world, everything was shut down except for construction projects. It was amazing. I mean, it was
Yeah, yeah.
fortuitous that that was the one thing that kept going. And so we managed to, even though we were all remote, and thankfully we had the infrastructure to support that from the outset, because that's how we built the firm to be able to all be remote. We were able to navigate that, but not without a lot of stress because we didn't know what that looked like. I mean, we had, there were things with respect to the construction policies during the pandemic that were also problematic, and we had to navigate that, and we didn't know when the courts were going to open per se. We didn't know when they would have virtual hearings. How was that going to be handled? And then, of course, reliant on our clients actually writing checks, so we didn't know if that was going to happen. So it was very, very challenging, or stressful rather, but it wound up working out, and we found a rhythm through the pandemic that was able to be sustainable.
Okay.
The plateau probably recently we experienced is that we're trying to identify all of it, but we wound up, I think it's more, again, we experienced another administrative hurdle where how do we keep layers? And I think that, and redundancy. So what we experienced was certain staff would be out of pocket for various reasons, could be medical reasons, could be just, and they didn't have systems in place so that when someone came in, they could take over and know exactly where to take over with respect to our system. So there were, we're discovering from time to time that things weren't even invoiced to the client for months at a time on some matters, that we really can't do it now because it's just too unexpected. We have to understand our clients' needs. They have to budget for each year and have to understand, so to surprise them with a bill later and say, oops, we didn't bill you 2 years ago for this is a difficult hurdle to overcome. So those are some of the hurdles we're dealing with.
For sure.
And then, of course, trying to adapt to the new world with AI, right? So that's also, how do we do that? Because the typical model for building a law firm was all, scaling through a hierarchy, right? So you had your junior associate, your senior associate, your partner billing at different rates, and they all were a profit. They all were a profit pool. Each layer was, but we're recognizing that AI has a place in that structure, and we have to reconfigure where the other roles fit in. And the initial model of scaling to be bigger just for the sake of being bigger and generating higher margins is not necessarily the same approach anymore. So we're looking to approach it differently. Yeah.
Right. So now it's basically looking to transition the operation of the practice from relying on, James and Sarah to relying on specific processes or even AI agents to take those processes and move them forward. If I'm hearing you right.
Yeah,
right?
No, that's exactly it. And that has inherent risk as well. Like, so we don't know how exactly AI agents are going to have access to our internal files. We have like confidentiality issues. We have attorney-client privilege. We have all those things. So just, just immediately just saying, oh, great, we can have an agent and just hook them up to our software and our emails. We're not ready to do that. So we have to do our own investigation into it. How can we do that in a safe way? How can we use these research tools in an effective way How do we avoid the hallucinations that pop up in either, across all of these different AI platforms? Do you cross-check against each other? Do you have one? Do you have multiple? Is it for personal use? Is it for the business? Do we streamline it for, do we use it for big picture processes like the billing and but at the same time, so there's a ton of effort that goes into making it more efficient, right? So we have to ramp up
Sure.
to hopefully ramp down.
Well, and so we're having this conversation a lot within, this podcast community that we're creating here. And
Sure.
I will say that everybody is certainly talking about AI, but the small and mid-sized businesses that we're speaking with aren't necessarily looking at AI to ultimately downsize their businesses. They're not looking at it as a way to ultimately reduce headcount, but they're definitely looking at ways to improve efficiency, improve productivity of the employees you currently have, and maybe not necessarily just throwing more bodies at a problem in the future, right? Let's
Yeah.
figure out how to use AI to at least work on some of the challenges you have, some of the relevant challenges that you have that are relevant for your business. So I'm actually relatively encouraged by what your colleagues on this Think Small podcast are talking about, and that is that everybody's pretty bullish on the productivity increases and not necessarily looking at it to cast off employees. And I'm happy about it.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say that the team we have is excellent. And I think that we would be training them, or we would all be training ourselves to be proficient in utilizing AI.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be different, right? It wouldn't be, we don't necessarily need the humans or bodies to be the workhorse. But we do need them to be the maestro, so to speak, of how this workhorse can be directed. And yes, I agree that it's not, we wouldn't want to cut because of this, but I do think it has probably an overarching effect of slowing growth, which is, I guess, somewhat of the equivalent, right? If you're slowing growth of these companies based on becoming more efficient, you're essentially reducing the workforce in that area.
Do you mean slowing headcount growth or slowing revenue?
Yeah. So that's what I mean. Not revenue growth, but the headcount growth, right? So
Headcount
you're
growth.
not,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you
for
say,
sure.
you're not throwing bodies at it. And yes, you're not technically removing anyone, but you're not proceeding at the same pace that you would
With
otherwise.
hiring.
Yeah,
Right.
correct.
Yeah. Yeah, that is that is one of the the short-term challenges I think people are realizing. But in the same conversation, Alex, and this is kind of fun, even people who see their industry space getting kind of contracted by AI, they are so optimistic about the new employment opportunities that we don't even know of yet that are being built by essentially this next industrial revolution. And as we all know, every industrial revolution we've had so far in this country has ended up in a net add of employment.
I agree. I think I'm in the bullish camp, even though there's a lot of uncertainty and trepidation about the unbridled power of AI. I mean,
Right.
it is just daunting to think about. I mean, this is different than any other industrial change, I think, because of its self power, its ability to think and correct
Right.
and learn on its own, which has potentially existential thoughts, right? But in terms of just its pure ability to assist companies like ours and others, and I think it's incredibly powerful, and I do think new opportunities will open up. I mean, for example, I know this right away. One of our interns who's going to law school is very adept at AI, right? So he is using it in a way that I think someone on the older side of the scale is just not going to have the intuitiveness to just use it and
Right.
try and just go deep into what its capabilities are. So he's giving us seminars on how to use this, right? So this is a 21-year-old, 22-year-old giving all of our professionals and staff a complete seminar on how to use this thing
That's
and safely.
outstanding. But that's great. That's exactly what
Yeah,
you should be doing, right?
yeah. So and we have to be open to that, right? Because if not, we're if we don't do
Right.
it, we're going to fall behind, right? It's just we can't be there's always somebody in the firm or in any company who's just so resistant to tech and just they still got their
Right.
notepad, they still got their briefcase, they're still asking their administrative assistant to order something online because they can't figure it out. But yeah, so we have to change that mindset to be growth minded.
For sure. So, Alex, tell me about what the future holds for the firm. What does the firm look like in 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would have been able to answer this much easier without AI, right? Um,
Okay, I can
yeah,
see that.
I think we would have scaled to we're at 17, 16 or 17 people right now. I think we probably would have gotten up to 20 or 25, and we might have considered acquiring another firm that does a different practice area
Okay.
and grown in the more traditional sense of a firm.
Yeah.
I don't I think with AI, I don't know if we necessarily want to go down that path. Maybe. But I think we could probably stay within the same size we are now, maybe one or two more people. I think um, I don't know how valuable our office space is. I mean, we have a nice office in right next to Madison Square Garden in the city, but how often do we have client meetings, and how often do people ever want to meet up? It's extremely rare in this age. It's almost a nuisance to people. You're kind of
Right.
wasting my time to be in person. I think that's something's lost on there. That's a separate conversation in terms of uh, you know overall life benefits. But in terms of how businesses run, I don't know how we're going to be using our office space going forward. I think it may stay the same or even contract. And I think we will probably stay the same size or yeah, we'll probably stay the same size, but I think our real growth is going to be internally adapting to AI. And I think maybe bringing on one or two more partners in different practice areas that they could build. So maybe they could grow a little bit, but I think we'd like to it would be nice to round out what we do with a couple other practice areas that could hedge against economic circumstances. Generally speaking, in the legal world, if the economy is booming, we have the transactions are hitting great, litigation's a little less. When the economy is contracting, litigation picks up and transactions are a little less. But it'd be nice to have a bankruptcy practice. It'd be nice to have trust and estates or family planning practice for some of the high net worth clients. That's I could see that.
Sure. Okay. Sounds great. What would be stopping you in achieving those goals? What's holding you back?
Ourselves, if anything, right? Just just
Yeah.
uh, I realize in business that it has to be a combination of your will, obviously your execution, and a certain amount of just organic circumstance, right? If you keep forcing something, you can have the will and the execution, but if you don't have, if it's not organic and you're just pushing, you're just beating your head against the wall. Timing, I guess, would be the right word for that.
Yeah.
So we have to have our eyes open to opportunities, right? And so I think that's if we keep our heads down and we're just we're going to miss it. So that would be stopping us. If we keep our eyes open and say, oh, this is a challenge, but maybe that challenge is an opportunity, then I think we can really capitalize on those things. So keeping our eyes open.
Awesome. Keeping your eyes open. I think
Yeah.
that's a great way to end this conversation. So
Yeah, sure.
Alex Tuttle, the managing partner and founder of the Tuttle Yick Law Firm in New York City. Alex, thank you so much for your time today and joining us on the Think Small podcast.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it.
Welcome to the Think Small podcast, hypergrowth for small businesses. So, what's slowing you down?